Welcome to The Human Experience, a podcast about the stories we live out every day and the importance of championing the vulnerability and courage of the storyteller. I'm your host, Jennifer Peterkin, and it was through my own lived story of experiencing domestic violence that this podcast was created. By traveling the globe and interviewing each guest in person, I am convinced now more than ever that stories have the power to change the world. You can join our community of storytellers by subscribing, leaving a rating and review, signing up for my newsletter, following me on Instagram, and more. Thank you for being here. In a world full of noise, to listen with intention is an act of resistance.
Well, Vincent, thank you so much for sitting. We literally just met, so this is super fun just to sit down and I get to hear about your life.
As a communications director, I'm very ready for an interview. for a city council president.
You're the perfect person.
Yeah, for a city council president, you get ready for an interview at any time. Jennifer, it's a pleasure to be on the Human Experience, and I appreciate it. And thank you for coming to this event today.
Yeah.
Housing is an issue in our city and in our country. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of people who need it, and governments all over are trying to help with housing, especially in cities like Philadelphia. We're the sixth largest city in the country. We're the poorest big city in the country.
Yeah.
So it's important to have housing for folks. The average median cost for rent is like $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the poorest big city in the country, a lot of people don't have $1,500.
Sure.
So it's trying to get them into housing and helping them get it. And that's why, I love working for my boss, Council President Kenyatta Johnson. He's only been council president since January of 2024. He was on council for 12 years before that. And I've been with him since December 2nd, 2019. So we've seen a little bit of everything. And I can tell people his heart is definitely in the right place, trying to help people all the time.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, you are as you said, Director of Communications for City Council. So
what does that do?
How long have you been in City Council?
Well, I can tell you, here's a little bit of background about me. I'm a kid of Philadelphia, born and raised here. If you know anything about Philadelphia, real Philadelphian is identified by their neighborhood.
Okay.
So if you ask somebody if they're from Philly and they can't tell you what neighborhood they're from, they're really not a Philadelphian.
Yeah.
I grew up in North Philly. And also I grew up in Germantown.
Okay.
My family moved there when I was like about 10. And we've been in Germantown ever since. So that's the home area. And I went to school here at Temple University, went to college also in Marietta in Ohio. So I'm a Marietta pioneer.
You did leave for a short time.
I left Philly for a short time. It was a fantastic experience. But my coverage, City Council, I first started as a reporter. I was a reporter for years. And I hosted Philadelphia is one of the few cities in the country that has a radio show around City Council. It actually gets broadcast live on the radio. So if you're ever listening on the radio, I can't do the radio station here. I don't know what the podcast rule is. So I will defer on that.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah, please do.
There's a station in Philadelphia called WURD. It's 900 AM, 96.1 FM if you're in Philly. If you're listening to this podcast anywhere in the world, it's WU like in university, R like in Robert, D like in David, radio, all one word, .com. Click on at 10 a.m. Eastern time every Thursday between September to December and then January to June. So that's kind of our schedule in City Council. So January to June, we take a summer recess like most legislative places do, like your state houses, the state senate, are not meeting in the summer. And then we come back September to December, and you can listen to it live. City council session lasts about 2 hours. And I always tell people it's a microcosm of the city.
Yeah.
Our public comment is probably some of the wildest that you'll ever hear, because I will say this, Philadelphians are not shy.
No.
We will tell you what we think. I always used to joke as a reporter covering council for years, if you can't get a quote in Philly, you really stink as a reporter, because people will tell you what they think.
And it's quiet.
And they're not quiet. So I covered government for a long time. I covered city council for a long time. And then I was the chief of staff for one of the council members, the late council member Juan Ramos. Then I left him to work for the school district in communications. I worked under two superintendents, Paul Vallis and the late Arlene Ackerman. Paul Vallis is now back in Chicago. He was a Chicago superintendent, but his family lives in Chicago. And then I had the opportunity to work for WURD. And I worked for about 8 years for them, doing any number of things, anchoring newscasts, hosting talk shows. And for 8 years, I was the host of the city council program. So I know a lot about council, the rules and regulations. And then Council President Johnson was then a district councilman in 2019. And he asked me if I would consider working for him. After conversations with him, I decided to work for him. And if you had told me in 2019, I'd be working for a district council member. And then in January 2024, I would be working for the council president, which is under Philadelphia's rules. He's the second most powerful person in city government, only behind the mayor. If the mayor, unfortunately, can't serve anymore, he becomes the mayor.
Okay.
So it's a pretty busy job.
Yeah, I guess so.
Pretty busy.
But it sounds like a pretty busy career.
So it's been fun.
Yeah.
I tell people, when I die, you don't need to cry. It's okay.
It's been a full life.
Listen, I live a dope life. I do dope stuff. I really do.
That's awesome. I love it. Growing up in Philadelphia, did you think that you would be, did you have aspirations to be adjacent to government or politics, or was it?
I was always interested in it. I was always fascinated by it. I was more adjacent to journalism.
Okay.
Right? I'll never forget, there was a teacher of mine in my Montessori school. And yes, I'm an African-American kid that went to a Montessori school.
Good for you.
It is good. It taught me a lot of lessons I still learn today. I can fold my hands and be very quiet for long periods of time. But I was always that curious kid. I was nosy. They call him nosy. I was a nosy kid. I was the why kid. Like, why you do this? Why? I would ask my parents. Why? Ask my grandmother. Why? I'd ask my teacher. Why? I'd be the kid in the science class. It's like, if you mix these two chemicals together and they blow up, why? So a teacher told me, I got a perfect career for you. I was like, what? He was like, it's called journalism. I said, well, what is that? He said, you can make a living by being nosy. And I said, well, that works for me. And I can talk.
Done.
Oh, done. So I started my school newspaper, like my elementary school newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah, I started that. I was the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, and went to high school and worked for the high school newspaper. And then I went to college, Marietta College, which is really kind of the Marietta College in southeastern Ohio. It was the smallest city I'd ever been in. It still had it. To tell you how small it is, and it's, anybody who's listening in Marietta, I love Marietta. I do. I love that part of Ohio. It's southeastern Ohio. The Muskingum, and then the Monongahela and the Ohio River kind of all come through there. So it's really beautiful. You're literally a bridge. You can take a bridge over to West Virginia. And it was a different part of life for me. Because if you grow up in a city, you're not used to small town America. And it was the first city I'd ever been to where every part had the same zip code.
Oh, interesting.
The zip code is 45750 in Marietta. Now, I don't know if that's changed, but when I was there, the whole zip code for the whole town was 45750. In Philadelphia, you could have 40 zip codes within the city.
Sure.
But I learned a lot there. I had a chance to work for the school newspaper, worked for the radio station, anchored TV news in our news room. So I was doing all of that.
Wonderful.
But I did it so much that I neglected the studies, and I was politely asked this might not be the school for you. And then I went to Temple University. And then after Temple University, I still did not graduate. So I admit I'm doing all this successfully and not officially a college graduate, but I had the experience and the drive to do it. And I got job after job after job and kept on being aggressive and didn't mind partnerships. And I was a political reporter for the Philadelphia Tribune for many years. The Philadelphia Tribune is the oldest continually published African-American newspaper in the country. Wow. So it just covers the African-American community and anything that impacts it. So it was there that I got to cover politics and I got to cover political conventions. So I was there with Bill Clinton in Atlanta back in 1980. And my first political convention was a teenager with George Bush, the father. I covered George Bush and Dan Quayle. So it's been a fun ride. Yeah. And I just have taken advantage of opportunities as they've come along. never been afraid to work, never been afraid to take that road less traveled.
Yeah.
And it's worked out for me. But I've always had an engagement in politics.
Okay.
It's just fascinating. Like
Yeah.
how do things work? How does a bill become a law? Because I tell people, government impacts you every single day.
Truly.
And it impacts you from the day you're born till the day you die.
Yeah.
And when people are like, well, I don't care about politics, it's not interesting. I think just the opposite. Because everything that government does impacts you in some way, whether it's your local city council, your state house, your state senate, the presidency, no matter who the president is, right? It all impacts you in some ways. So, you can either be, don't be on the menu. That's a good way of looking at it. Don't be on the menu, or don't be that person on the outside looking in. That's not good.
No, it's not. And I think you're right. It's almost a willful ignorance at that point, because it truly does impact every facet of our lives.
And I tell people some of it's real simple. I'm not saying that you have to be a scholar of politics, right? I'm not saying that you have to be like, but all I tell people in really, I'll use a city for an example. Cities can be great if citizens just care about their house to their step, their step to their block, to their sidewalk, and then their sidewalk to their block. So if everybody on that block said, you know what, we're committed to making sure it's safe, it's well lit, trash isn't around. If there's an abandoned car, calling the city and getting it removed. It might take us a little while, but we don't like to have abandoned cars. And just kind of working together with their neighbor. If you do that kind of domino approach, it helps neighborhoods and it helps cities. The elected officials, they can do the hard lifting, right? We can do the 10,000 foot broad vision for that. But, if you live in your house, you're responsible for your house.
Sure.
Right? If you don't want crazy stuff to happen in your house, that's kind of up to you. You don't want us to get involved when you have to call the police.
Yeah.
Right? Or you have to call fire. Yeah. But, government should be here to help. And like I said in our discussion, you have every right to demand from government that they help you. Every right. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Yeah. It's very participatory, right? And those that participate get stuff. And those that don't. Yeah. So I tell people, please participate. And you have a right to ask my boss, Council President Kenyatta Johnson, and your council member to do their job. You have a right to do that. Yeah. But I also tell people, citizens have a right to be a part of this democracy too. We can't do it all by ourselves. Government cannot solve every problem. Yeah. We just cannot. Yeah. And I'm not saying it to be negative. I'm not saying it to knock off people's things and, you're just casting blame and, you don't want to do your job. Yes, we should be held accountable, but we can't do everything. Government can't do everything. I'll give you a good example. If you have twice a week trash pickup and we pick up your trash and a piece of trash falls on the ground, you can't blame your trash man because that piece of paper fell on the ground. Yeah. Think about how the 99.9% of the trash got put into the truck and that piece might have fallen off of anywhere. It might have had a ripped bag that caused that. It might have had a gust of wind. You can't blame the trash guy for the wind. Sure. So I just say, people, you really, 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 government people work really hard. They do. And I tell citizens, our workers do it. Think of your firefighters. Think of your police officers. Think of when your water has a water burst. Somebody's out there at 2 a.m. digging that ground and going and fixing that pipe, right? So that you can do it. I tell people, if you're listening around the country or around the world, when you really appreciate government is when you get a snowstorm. And, you're asleep in your house, but at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's somebody with a snowplow removing that snow so that you can go to work. Yeah. Or somebody's getting on that public transit bus to take you to your destination. And they deliver people safely every day. So, we work hard. Yeah. We just don't sit in our office and thumb around. Some might, but I can tell you this person, Vincent Thompson, he's in these streets. Yeah. He knows these streets. Yeah.
Well, that's very evident by the way that you talk about it and the way that you care.
Oh, yeah, I try to.
I think it's really interesting as somebody that's not involved in politics in a working capacity.
You're maybe smarter than me, Jennifer.
No.
Smart. You may be smarter. Maybe smarter. She hosts a podcast, so she might be a little smarter, ladies and gentlemen.
I think the perception oftentimes is that the only politics that matter are the federal national politics, and that local and state politics, there's no real power there. And I think from especially what I'm hearing you saying is that's really where you have the most power to affect change. So what would you tell to people who are unconvinced of their own importance in their local community? I will say this, and I've said this as a person who's covered politics, both national, local, and state. I understand why people like the federal elections. I tell people the presidential elections are sexy. They really are. Yeah. They're super sexy. I call them the Idris Elba of elections. Like they are. They're like, you see all the commercials and you read all the stuff. Whether you want to or not. Whether you want to or not. And you get literature in your mail. And, you see the anchors on television talking about, well, this is an important election. This state's been called and that state's been called. And it's a hype election. Mm-hmm. So, you see it on your television a lot. But let me tell you where the rubber meets the road, ladies and gentlemen. Your mayor, your council member, your state representative, your state house, your governor. Those are things that impact you daily. And we deal with all the impacts of the federal. So if the federal government cuts funding to a city, we have to adapt to that. Yeah. Right? And so because you still, as a citizen out there, you still expect your local trash to get picked up. Sure. You still expect your school bus to pick up the kid on time. You don't want my boss, Council President Kenyatta Johnson, to say, you're not going to get trash pickup anymore. Yeah. You're not going to get your kids to school. Schools aren't going to open. So local government really impacts you every day. I always tell people, in Philadelphia, just to let people know, there are 17 members of city council. 10 members represent districts. So districts 1 through 10. So imagine the city of Philadelphia broken into 10 circles. Mm-hmm. There's a council member for every circle. And they're like the mayor of their circle. They know everything. Mm-hmm. All the neighborhood groups, all the community groups. They deal with all the problems, that kind of thing. Good example. Philadelphia Council President Kenyatta Johnson represents the 2nd Council District. Each council district in our city has about 150,000 people that are part of it. We're bigger than some state house districts and some state Senate districts. But he represents, just to let folks know, if you fly in to Philadelphia and you go into the international airport, you've flown into the 2nd district. If you're catching an Uber and driving up the highway to get into downtown Philadelphia and you go past the sports arenas and the Navy Yard, you're in the 2nd Council District. If you go to a casino, live casinos in our district, you can go down there and do some gambling, get back on the road. And if you go to our Center City, which is down, for most people, it's their downtown. We call it Center City in Philadelphia. Parts of that is also part of his district. So we have a lot of economic engines. We also have the port, but every council district is important. Mm-hmm. And in Philly, we also have 7 members that are elected at large, which means they represent the entire city. So you can call them about anything, but most of the time, district council members deal with the nuts and bolts day-to-day problems. We listen to everybody. Yeah. I can tell you as the council president's comms director, communications director, I still get the emails from citizens that say, I want my pothole fixed. Mm-hmm. My traffic light is out. My tree needs to be cut. Why can't you cut my tree? There's an abandoned car. Why is it taking so long for the abandoned car to happen? My playground and my rec center needs to be fixed. So we really deal with a lot of the day-to-day stuff. I tell people, if you see quality of life in the local level, it's probably from a council member. Mm. Right? It probably is that man or woman advocating for that. So your kid can play in a park. Yeah. With a spray. We call them spray grounds here in Philadelphia, but they're basically playgrounds where water shoots out. Oh, yes. Yeah, they're called playgrounds. So a Philly kid doesn't have to go anywhere.
he or she can just go to the playground and get cool from the water.
Yeah.
But people love them,
Mm-hmm.
right? People love the small stuff. So I always tell people, citizens, don't sleep on your local elected officials.
Yeah.
They are here for a reason, and they do a lot of the day-to-day grunt work that you don't understand. And I always tell people, here's a good way of understanding. If you ever have a constituent issue, here's a good way of understanding it for anybody listening out there. And I'm just going to use the United States.
Yeah.
All right. If the name of the agency that you're complaining about starts with your city's name, like the Philadelphia Sanitation Department, call your council member.
Mm.
If it starts with the name of your state, like the Pennsylvania Department of Health, Pennsylvania Department of Education, that's where you call your state rep and your state senator. And if it has the term U.S. in front of it, that's when you call your congressperson or your state senator. So like if you call a council person and say, my passport is delayed. I don't know why that is. We're going to tell you we don't do passports.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't do passports, but we will direct you to the other agencies, and we all talk
Sure.
to each other. So I'll send an email to your district council member and like, Susie Smith called.
Yeah.
She's got an issue with her passport. Can you help her? So sometimes we get blamed in local government for things that aren't on. Like,
Sure.
I don't understand why my Social Security benefits are coming. We don't know either.
Yeah.
Because we don't deal with Social Security. But if you have an issue with your pothole or your trash,
Yeah.
that's where your local officials are.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting to have that breakdown because I think a lot of people really don't know,
Right.
Aren't told that kind of breakdown matters. And so when people do have a problem, they don't know who to call, who they're supposed to call as you get calls for Social Security and your
that's
passports.
okay. I always tell people it's important to know if you live in a city, you should know your council person.
Mm-hmm.
You should know your state representative. You should know your state senator. And you should know your congressperson. And every state has 2 U.S. senators. So that's easy.
Yeah.
But you can Google that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the services now, you can just Google your address and it'll pop up and it'll tell you everybody and just write them down. Because when you call me and say, Vincent, I got an issue. Who's your district council person? Oh, and then I refer you to your district council person because we also respect those lines.
Sure.
Too, right? We respect them. If something's happening in Council President Johnson's 2nd district, even though he's a council president, he respects the district council people. So he would take that issue to them to start it first. Just like we would expect if a district council member got an issue that's in his district to let us know as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear your opinion on and this is more on a national level, but I'm sure it drips into every facet, but there's such a...
Now remember, I'm a comms director, so if you ask me too much, I may defer. Just letting you know now.
That's fine. No,
if I say the word defer, then we'll just go to the next
That's absolutely fine. There is no pressure to answer any question. But just in general, there's a lot of distrust of, and people just assume that, and you've kind of made mention of it a couple of times already, like, we're not doing nothing. People think we're doing nothing. We're not doing nothing. What do you think that stems from?
I think people like to see stuff. We're I got to see it country. Like if you don't see it, you don't believe it.
Yeah.
It's like kids. If you tell them you're going to take them to the movies, better take them to the movies. Right. And I think a lot of times because local government, is not as fast as everybody wants us to be, people will think something isn't happening. And sometimes I tell people, give you a good example. They'll say an abandoned car. Let's say you call and there's an abandoned car in your block, right? Now people will think, I've never seen that car move anywhere. It's got to be abandoned. Well, the police will go out there and we'll run the tags. Mm-hmm. And the tags will say it's not an abandoned, it's owned by somebody. Well, the person has a right to keep their car parked in front of their house and never use it.
Yeah.
We can't just tow it because you haven't seen them move. Just like if you have a car and you don't use it, you wouldn't want us to tow your car. So that's one thing. Sometimes I think people don't understand the delay that it takes. Now, do I agree that if you've been calling for something for a year, 2 years, that's way too long? Absolutely. But I also think people have to realize in a city like Philadelphia, let's say there's 50,000 abandoned cars. Well, if you have 4 tow trucks or 6 tow trucks or 10 tow trucks to tow all of these cars, they're not going to get to every car as quickly as people would want. So we're working. Local governments work daily. If I would urge citizens to do one thing, give us patience. Because in Philadelphia, we have 25,000 employees. Most cities don't have it, right? They're small municipalities, but they do a lot of stuff. So we are working.
Yeah.
Like here it is. I'm a staffer. We're doing this interview on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That means I have 2 telephones, ladies and gentlemen. I have my personal one and the work one, and they all ring at all hours of night.
Yeah.
So, if you think that we're just, those guys don't do anything, that's the furthest from the truth. Now, are there bad apples in every situation? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would say 99.9% of every local government employee across this country works their butt off for the citizens. So sometimes we just ask people, I say it all the time, just give us grace and give us patience.
Yeah.
We're trying our darndest to get to everything as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will call government and expect something will happen. And then we'll say it just can't.
Yeah.
Well, and I say this, that it can't only because it might not be within the purview. I'll give you a fantastic example. In Philadelphia, we got a lot of people who complain about overgrown trees. And that's probably the same thing if anybody's listening, right? Live in a big city, small town. It's an overgrown tree. It's in somebody's yard or it's an abandoned house. It's encroaching on my house. What can you do to cut it? Well, if it's a tree on somebody's personal property, government can't cut that person's tree.
Right.
We just are not allowed to. We can't go on their public property. Now, if the house is abandoned, then we might have something to do. We may be able to fix, repair, that kind of stuff. But we have to certify that it's abandoned, right? So we just can't jump in. Just like we can't do for you, we just can't jump in and cut your, like somebody's listening, they wouldn't want us to go and say, I've never seen you leave your house.
Yeah.
So that's an abandoned house. So we're going to sell it, right? So we can't do that. And sometimes, in government, people will sometimes say stuff and we research it and find out it's not true or it could be personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something like that. So we have to be very cautious. That's why good governments have lots of lawyers. We have our own law department in city government, and we listen to them very, very, very well. So we try not to violate people's rights. But I will say this, as an employee, I think I probably have one of the easiest jobs because I work for a council member. So we do a lot of stuff, but the success is based on, even for our mayor, any mayor is judged not by what they do, but the staff that implements it. And another thing I'll tell people here, be nice to staff. Staff does a lot of work, and staff is probably going to be the person that fixes your problem. My boss is a great boss, and he's hands-on, but he is not picking up your trash. He's not filling that pothole. There's somebody at the streets department that's filling that pothole. There's somebody at the sanitation department that's picking up the trash. There's an aide in the office that wants to help you, and please be kind to them, right? Because they're doing the work for a lot of citizens. Sometimes people, human decency, as you know, with the human experience, it still goes a long way even in government.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't mind being yelled at, but you don't have to yell at us all the time. Right?
Well, yeah. And yelling isn't.
Yeah, we get yelled.
Is it ever really productive?
That's what I'm saying. Right. And I'm not saying don't hold us accountable.
Sure.
Please don't let anybody
But the
think
way
that
you do it matters.
But I think sometimes the way you do it matters. And just understand, when you call us back and we're working on the problem, there's another agency that does the final solution. So, you could call me about your trash and then I can send it to the sanitation department. But it's then up to the sanitation department to come out and pick it up. It's not like I go out there and pick up your trash.
Sure.
Right? Or pick up your bag. So sometimes the delay is because another agency might be busy with something. Yeah. So like I said, give us grace. We're not sitting up here, sitting in our office watching television and just wasting 8 hours a day. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's a shame that is often the kind of stigma that comes around it. And I think at the end of the day, you're all people too, right? That's what needs to be. We have families and we have lives, and These are
Human beings.
the ones who do it well. These are pretty demanding.
Mm.
They're demanding on their family, demanding on their staff. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
My boys are 30, 29. I have a 15-year-old daughter. It's demanding.
Sure.
I've missed more than a few things for work or the job or other things, but it's the decision I made.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying cry for me, Argentina, that are listening to me, but a lot of people sacrifice stuff to be in public service.
Yeah.
They could make more money in the private sector, but they want to be in public service.
Yeah.
There are people who've devoted a lot of years to the public sector, and your lives are better because of them. They may be names that you don't know, but they're just as important.
Yeah.
I tell people our 25,000 employees are much more important than me. They really are. My name might be known because I'm a spokesman and I might be in the paper every once in a while, but I didn't go and fight a fire yesterday. I didn't go and, as a police officer, stop a crime. I didn't go to a sewer and go into the sewer and shut off a water valve that's, overflowing, but I do feel in my role, I can uplift those people.
Yeah.
And I can also, talk about what we do as city council. So we're not so distant.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very clear that you love Philadelphia.
I do. I love my hometown.
Born and raised. Yeah. So
Will Smith is not the only one that loves Philadelphia.
Not by far.
Not by far.
Was there ever any point where you thought you would leave Philadelphia? I mean, outside of your school experience.
There were times, but I've always been able to just kind of find those positions here at home.
Yeah.
Philly is America's biggest small town. I say that all the time. It's America's biggest small town. If you traverse this neighborhoods, Germantown, North Philly, West Philly, South Philly, Kensington, Bridesburg, if you traverse it, you'll meet people and they'll give you a shot. You might be unemployed for a little while, but then somebody will be like, oh, Vincent's out there. Oh, I know he does good work. You want to come and freelance for me? And that's always what I've done. So I've been very, very lucky. I think if I wasn't in Philly, I'd be like a fish out of water.
Really?
I really would.
Yeah.
I really would. I love the ability to go to other cities and see what they do. But I've never been one of those cats that need to be known by the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like being known in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I really, really do. There's a TV anchor here, former TV anchor. His name is Jim Gardner. Used to anchor our 6 ABC, which is our number one television station in this market. Number one. They've been number one for like 40 years in a row. Every night. Number one, 40 years. So he was like the Walter Cronkite of Philly, right? And, he could have went national, but in Philly, he was respected. Anytime a world leader came to Philly, they had to speak to Jim Gardner. Any president that came or presidential candidate, they had to speak to Jim Gardner. And he was able to make like millions of dollars and didn't have to go to the network, didn't have to go anywhere. He was just like the voice of this region. And, I like that kind of thing. I would not mind being that guy that, stays in Philly, travels all around the country, which I do every once in a while. But when somebody comes to Philly, I get to meet them. Yeah. I get to say hi. I get to put a microphone in front of their face for my radio show. And I get to talk to them. So I'm just as important, as I can. Sometimes it's good to be a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than to try to be the big fish everywhere.
Yeah.
I like that.
Sure.
I'm very happy in my town.
Sure. I love that.
And I also get a chance to, help my city. Right. So, when all is said and done with me, and I'm 57 right now, and I hope that it goes on for a long time, I want people to say, Vincent really helped me. Yeah. He helped my city. Right? He tried to make it better. Yeah. He raised his kids right. And tried to just do the right things every day. I'm far from perfect. Far from perfect. But, hope people are like, yeah, he helped my kid get something. It really feels cool when you're like, hey, Vincent, thanks. Because of you and the council member, you got us baseball tickets to go to the baseball game. These kids had never been to a baseball game, right? And they live in the city of Philly, and the stadium's like maybe a 20-minute ride from their house, but they've never been to it. Yeah. Right? Or, hey, Vincent, thank you very much. my kid get to see the Museum of Art or the Barnes Center. They live in the city and have never been there, right? But it could open their world to a whole broader thing. I'm a true believer that kids have to see it to believe it. If they don't see it, they don't think they could achieve it. If I hadn't have seen an African-American gentleman, his name was Malcolm Poindexter. He worked for Channel 3, which is a local Philly. He was one of the first black men I ever saw on television. He was no bigger. He was 5 feet. If he was 5 feet, it'd be amazing. He was that tiny. And I saw him on television. And one day I just wrote to him. I wrote a letter to him. And he wrote me back a letter. I still have that letter today.
Yeah.
And he invited me to the station. And we had a hot dog with my mom on a cart outside the television station. And he took me on a tour of the TV station. And it was then that I left that thing. I left that station and that tour and I said, I'm going to do this for a living. This is cool. This is really, I tear up as I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a true believer that people got to see it. And, you know, as an African-American gentleman, I'm a role model, right? I have no choice but to be a role model, right? So I got to be there for my city and I got to be there for my kids. So kids of all colors do good stuff. So that's what I hope my legacy is. I might not be glorified in the papers or, you know, you might not read about my obituary in the New York Times, but I'd like to have people say he really helped us.
Yeah.
Right? My life is better because Vincent was around.
I love that. That is quite a legacy.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm working every day. If you took a poll of my kids, they might not think that high. My polling centers with my kids might not be that high, but I'm hoping.
That's up and
I'm
down.
hoping polling numbers change daily.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so Philadelphia is a pretty polarized city sometimes too, for folks that aren't from here, right? Yeah. So,
but we're also a unified city too. And I will say this: we may be polarized in some ways, but we get very unified when we think that things have gone wrong, right? So like if we think that something you're talking about us incorrectly or you're treating somebody wrong, we are also one of the most compassionate cities I've ever been to, where we will just like rally around people. You know, I'll give a good example. If something happens on the TV news, somebody's lost their belongings in a fire, people who don't have as much as the person who did it will come and be like, here's some clothes. Yeah. Here's some food. I'll let you stay in my house. You know, the unity for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, we're going to talk about that forever.
Oh, yes.
We may lose it. We may not win another Super Bowl for 20 years, but you will never forget that Super Bowl. So we do come together in that way. So we're not, you know, what is it? Philadelphia is not as bad as Philadelphians say it is sometimes, but
well, you know, you're hardest on the people you love.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. That's true. You can't talk about, we can talk about ourselves. You can't talk about it.
And for people that, you know, what would you say if people are on the fence about visiting Philadelphia?
They need to come. Yeah. We're a great city. We've got City Hall, which is one of the most beautiful city halls in the world. It knocks you out. Our city hall has been around since 1901. There's marble and glass and intricate designs all throughout the building. I would urge people to come to Philadelphia City Council chambers, making a selfish plug for our institution, and see the chandelier, a massive chandelier that we have in our caucus room. The caucus room is the room that council members meet before they go into the council chambers. We have about 300 seats in the council chambers. The chairs, the desk of the council members are like over 100 years old. Wow. We have the council president's rostrum is amazing. It's really cool looking. And our city council chamber is a little bigger than the British House of Parliament.
Okay.
So it's a little bigger. It might look smaller on television, but it's a pretty big room. And when we have controversial things, that place can get packed with like 300 people.
Oh,
and it can rock sometimes. That place can rock. So you have not just tourism in our sound with the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall and the Comcast Center, but if you visit City Hall under William Penn, big statue that you'll see at the top, he's the founder of Pennsylvania, everybody, the founder of our city. There's an observation deck right under his feet that if you go up there in the summertime, it's an incredible view of the city. I still think it's one of the best views of Philadelphia. But we also have a fantastic restaurant scene, and we have great neighborhoods and great people. So we're a gritty city. That's why we love Gritty as a mascot for the Flyers. I know guys that look like Gritty. I really do. When I saw him, I was like, I know that guy. I went to high school with him, but not in the orange fur, but somebody with shape like Gritty. Yeah. But we're a really cool town. And I tell people, you can visit, you can come up and visit, Washington, D.C. and take a train ride up to us and visit Philly. And then if you want to go to the beach, you're 2 hours away from Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And you can come, and then you can come to Philly, go to Valley Forge, because you're within driving distance of that. Where I think I remember, like, Philadelphia is something like 3 or 4 hours away from most of America's population centers.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's an easy come to. We're a great town.
It is.
There's an old tourism thing. Philadelphia, get to know us. Once you get to know us, you'll never want to say goodbye. It was an old tourism jingle, and I tell people all the time, come on, you'll like. We're more than just cheesesteaks and pizza and soft pretzels, but cheesesteaks are awesome.
Yes,
hoagies are awesome, and soft pretzels are awesome.
What's your cheesesteak place? Or is that a secret?
No, it's not secret. No, it's not secret. But I'm not going to alienate anybody because I am the spokesman for the city council. But I will tell people, if you come to Philly and you want to have an authentic cheesesteak, go to any pizzeria in any neighborhood. And also, you can go to any food cart. Downtown, we have a lot of food carts in Philadelphia, so you can get food on the street. If you ask for a cheesesteak or on a food cart, it'll be as good as anyone you've ever had. There's some of the touristy places that are overhyped. Yeah. But I say you can get if they can't make a good cheesesteak, they shouldn't be in business. Yeah. Yeah. But your trucks can make a good one. So I'm not going to name one. That's well played. Fair. Well played. We're not going to do that. Well played. But yeah, I will not do that. And I will not talk about my favorite hoagie place. I will not talk about my favorite water ice place. I do have one, but I'd have to take you there privately. Okay. And, but we do love our snacks. If you come to Philly and you can't get a bite to eat, something's wrong. Yeah. Something's wrong. Yeah. And our vegan options have gone up a lot. I'm not a vegan. Yeah. But my vegan friends say they have.
Interesting.
I'm a meat and cheese guy. I'm a meat and cheese guy. That's good. Meat and cheese guy. I tell people, if you cut me, I bleed the cheese. That's how Philly I am.
I believe it. After everything you've said, that sounds pretty true. So, well, I do have one question that I ask all of my guests at the end of each episode, which is through the lens of your experience.
Wow, I've made an episode. That's awesome. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Through the lens of your experience, what does compassion mean to you?
Compassion means being human, right? Like just feeling what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes, not quickly judging. Walt Whitman had a quote, be curious, not judgmental. Right? And I didn't really know about that until I saw it on, the TV show. God, I can't remember the name of the show. It's super popular. Oh, gosh. This is the part I wish I hadn't blanked out on. Ted Lasso.
Oh, yes.
It's Ted Lasso.
Yes.
It's a Ted Lasso. I heard that quote on Ted Lasso. And I had spent time in Camden where Walt Whitman lived until he died. And that's a really great kind of summary of things. Be curious, not judgmental. And I thought about that. I'm like, my whole life has been just being curious. Yeah. Of just about stuff. And then when you add being not judgmental, it should be easy to be compassionate. I tell somebody, we rush, we run, we rip, we race, and we do the things of life, right? If you're mom and dad, you're taking kids to school, right? You're driving, you're doing all this stuff. Now, I don't drive. I do public transit in Philadelphia. And there'll be homeless people that'll stop me, right? And, sometimes I'll be like, man, get away from me. I don't need to do it. But then I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I got $1 in my pocket. Let me give that guy $1. $1's not going to kill me. But it could really be helpful to that person. So I try to practice what I preach. right? I think having a young child helps me stay kind of grounded.
Yeah.
My daughter is very good at that, and I'm trying to teach her life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what compassion means to me. It's just trying to always remember to just stop and feel for people. Like just take a break, take a second and do it.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're not doing that, especially in the jobs that I do, maybe just kind of taking a 15-minute break so that you don't say something like scurrilous or bad. And you just kind of just stay there and just kind of be in the moment. But that has become a very much a mantra for me. Be curious, not judgmental. And I would hope that more people do that because, no matter, and I'll get it back to government, no matter what you ask for from your governments, and you can ask for a lot, we can't break humans being good to humans are still going to go a long way.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That's going to go a long, long way. And I really, really hope that people say, he can be a jerk sometimes. He can be an idiot. He might not be the nicest guy all the time. But I hope they say, you know what? But overall, he keeps his word.
Yeah.
Right? If he says he's going to do something, he does it. If he says he can't do it right now, he means he can't do it right now. But if I call him in a couple months, he'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
Or he can do. And sometimes compassion can be directing people to services they don't know about.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't always have to be you. It can be like, hey, Charlie, I know you need something. Let me make a call.
Mm-hmm.
See if they can help you.
Yeah.
Hey, let me do this. Oh, you need food? There's a food bank that I know. Go down to the food bank, and get it. Oh, well, I don't want the food bank, but you asked me for something. Mm-hmm. Here's a solution.
Yeah.
Like I'm not judging.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care. Like there's a lot of people that are in food banks now, right? The pandemic showed that a lot of people needed help when they didn't do it. Shoot, I went to food banks during the pandemic when I couldn't get certain things, right? So it's not something to be embarrassed. I think sometimes you can show compassion by showing people a different way.
Yeah.
And doing just small things. Like small acts of kindness go a long way. I really try intentionally now to say thank you.
Yeah.
To say I appreciate you. And I have a thing at my office now. I've only been in that role since January 2024. And I have, a team of like 4 or 5 people. And I make it a point every morning to come out my office and just say hello. Mm-hmm. Just say good morning. Every once in a while, I'll say thank you. Just because I don't want to lose that. Because I am in my position because I got lucky to be with the right guy at the right time. Mm-hmm. But I'm not successful if the team doesn't do the work. If the team doesn't, if our staff photographers don't take great images of the council members, if our deputy communications director, and I'm going to name them, Chris, Talia is our photographers that do stuff for city council. They're incredible. Talia's a college kid. She shoots as well as any pro I've ever seen. Megan is the deputy communications director. I didn't know Megan until she was hired. And now we're like Batman and Robin. I trust her with everything. But she does a lot of the stuff that I can't do, right? She picks up on a lot of stuff. Kara Garcia is Drew, our graphic designers. Anything you see graphically done by Philadelphia City Council, they design them. I don't do all that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't design the stuff. I kind of have the final say on stuff, but it's not out of I do a lot of writing and a lot of the administrative stuff, but it's the team that makes us look good.
Yeah.
And, I don't micromanage them. I don't, they're good people. We give them direction and we move. Now, I don't know if you've done a poll with them, if they would think I'm that great of a manager, but I try,
Yes.
and I don't micromanage people. I always think you hire good people. You tell them what the vision is and you let them do their work. Mm-hmm. And if they have a question, they can ask you. But one other thing I also don't like, and people know it, I don't like to be caught flat-footed. Like, it's okay. I don't have to know everything, but just let me know the big stuff, right? Because in Philadelphia, and I'll leave you with this, Philadelphians don't mind being hit by the 2x4. They appreciate you if it's coming. And that's compassion in a way too.
Yeah.
At least they know something's happening. They can be like, oh man, he was a jerk, but at least told me.
At least
he told me. At least he told me. He's not such a jerk. Like, I respect him. So I do appreciate the time for this podcast. It's awesome.
Thank you.
The human experience, literally. This is one of the coolest interviews I've done.
Oh,
and we just did it on the lark.
On the cuff, yeah.
On the cuff. I'll take that. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Be curious, not judgmental. I think those are absolutely words to live by.
That is cool. If you ever come to Philly, please visit the city council chambers and say hi to me. I'll probably be working there late one night.
Perfect.
It's a late day.
Yeah. Well, we will link to all of this in our show notes as well. So people can get in touch.
I want to hear what people have to say. And say that you heard me on the podcast, and you can tell me what you think. You won't be the first person out there if you say something bad, and you won't be the last. I do like nice things.
Yes.
But trust me, I'm the father of 3, and they don't like me all the time either. So it's okay. I'm used to that. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Human Experience. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends and family, share it on social media, and rate and review it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also support the podcast financially by going to my website, thehxpod.com, linked in the show notes, and clicking on Donate. It takes a lot of time and resources to create this podcast, so every little bit helps. Everyone has a story, and I'd love to hear yours. So be sure to check out the show notes for more information about how to stay in touch. Do good and love well.